I think it's really important to have a free student press without prior review because as a student newspaper and a completely student-run student newspaper, we shouldn't have to worry as long as we're being journalistically responsible and we're not having any bad intentions in what we're printing. We should have the responsibility to print what the students need to know, even if maybe there's an opinion piece that doesn't reflect well on the administration. We shouldn't cut something like that just because the administration doesn't want opinions like that printed out there for everyone to see. So it's really important that they trust us, that we're not trying to be irresponsible with the power to reach out to the entire student body, but that we're just serving as a medium for students to express whatever they need to get out there.
I think it's important to have a newspaper without prior review so we can get information out to the students without it being tainted or just not be able to cover things that are important to students without administrators taking away that right. I think it helps students in the future to recognize news that's actually important and actually can make a difference versus news that's been, toned down for the sake of keeping the look of the school in a positive light. I mean, this school is amazing. We're very privileged to go to a school like this, but there are things that we have to address, and there are things that I think prior restraint won't allow us to do.
I think it's important because I think it's essential to provide our students, especially at the ages that they're at, high school, with a realistic experience of working in media, in the press, in communication with their audiences, and in some cases those audiences are very expansive. They're not just students and teachers, but they're also community.
I think that a free press can create alert citizens because it's important at an early age for people to realize the difference between news and opinions and bias, and I think that having a free press at a student level pretty much exposes them to, even in a small dose, exposes them to actual news versus opinions or not fake news, but news that may not be as credible because there's bias laced in it.
I think a way to be the most involved citizen you can be is by being aware of what's going on in the community, and by people knowing what's going on, they can make the most informed decisions in their life.
I think it's great that as a student newspaper we can have people submit letters to the editor, and people can submit opinion pieces and all sorts of things without having to actually be a part of the newspaper.
Well, I think a free student press has enormous potential to catalyze and to stimulate discussion in the greater school community. That's interesting. I was watching a documentary about John Lewis the other night, and I think the subtitle of it was "Get in the Way." And John, of course, is an icon of the civil rights movement going back to the late 50s and early 60s even. And I like that for him. I like that title. But I think I'm the opposite. Get out of the way. and that's kind of been my approach to this whole thing of working with a free student press, is to try to stay out of the way as much as possible. But that's only kind of what I'm not. What I try to be, in addition to being out of the way, is a supporter of the effort, a supporter of the idea, really, of a student-free press and the importance that it has for a school.
I think the Harbinger plays a really important role in the community because we're really the only way for the students collectively to get out their opinion and for it to be official, for it to be responsible. It's not just one person tweeting or something. It's somewhere where people can come and express the way they feel or talk about something that's going on and why it's important, and it's a legitimate news source. It's a legitimate medium for saying what's going on.
I think that the Harbinger plays a role in the community because, especially in the past year, I've seen it just go beyond the walls of the school. It goes to parents, and it allows people to just be informed on not only what's happening within the school, but what's happening in the lives of students, and just really makes people aware of that even if we are in this bubble, there are so many things outside this bubble that we should be talking about, that we should be addressing. And the Harbinger just brings that information to people and allows them to, they can read it in the Harbinger, but they can go on another news site and learn more about it. And I think that's important.
I think it not only informs, but it also entertains, and it's a way to bring our community together. And people kind of look at it and say, oh, there's someone from our community who's able to create something like this, and then it also can make people want to get involved themselves in the situations that's going on. So I think that's really valuable.
I think the Harbinger is that kind of catalyst that I talked about, that it is a vital source of information, that it is expected at this point in its history. It's expected to be a leader in terms of topics, discussions, inquiry, investigation, and I find it widely talked about. I think it's relied upon, and the circles I travel in are obviously adults, but I also try to keep my ear to the ground in terms of the student body, and I think even as a throwback to the old days when the hard copy comes out, today was that day for another edition, there's a buzz in the air, and that buzz in the air has a lot to do with just the anticipation that people have for the newspaper in any of its manifestations, if it's hard copy or if it's online or if it's in social media, for anything that comes from it as being anticipated and expected, to be interesting and stimulating.
I think especially in 2016 and 17, the fact that we covered the election so in-depthly really, especially the kids at this school who have just turned 18, who might not be very aware of politics or, are very involved in politics, they had a way of even just reading summaries of potential candidates and understanding, this is what I'm looking for in a candidate, and being able to choose that candidate based on that graph that Carrie did. I think also addressing the immigration piece was a good thing because there's a certain mindset that all immigrants that come here are either very poor at English, very uncultured, and that's not true. These people come from very rich and vibrant cultures, and they work very hard to get to the place that they are. And it's good to know their stories and to understand where they come from before you judge, their roots and why they've come here.
We're doing a feature about immigration, and it's really it's relevant to the time. It's relevant because of the political situation we're in, and that's amazing because it shows how our community is impacted by things that seem so irrelevant to us so often. Like, they just seem like opinions that you can say in the hallways, but they're actually about people that are here and impact people who are here. So it's incredible to see that some of these hard-hitting things actually matter.
I think a topic that we've covered that comes to mind immediately was the opioid section, and I think articles like that are ones where you don't really want to talk about them. They might not be the most comfortable topic, but it's important to recognize that things like that are happening and what we can do to prevent them.
Well, I think the Harbinger has done a very good job of being a reliable source of independent and impartial inquiry. And they've done a number of different stories over the years that I think have established that reputation. They've looked at adolescent stress and probed into that. They've looked into the positive and negative aspects of social media, looked very, very closely into those issues. They've looked at our our student body, and they've looked at the newest members of our student body, in many cases students who are very different from the average student here at Algonquin, and they've endeavored to bring more awareness of those stories from those students because, quite frankly, we need those kinds of stories.
Something that I've learned is really just being able to contribute to something like this. I mean, this is, for students, maybe even the only way that they get their news, even though that's not preferred. With social media being such a huge thing now, I think this can even be the only form of press that they get in a hard copy. And I think it's really cool to be a part of creating something like that and bringing the community together.
Well, I've definitely learned more being part of the Harbinger, arguably about how to operate in life than I have even in most of my classes, just because Harbinger has taught me how to be a leader, and it has taught me how to work well with people that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise. If I was just in a group project with some of these people, then I probably would have, made my way through it and then let go. But as we like to call it, this is kind of a group project where it just keeps on going and you just restart again after you're finished. So it's really incredible to learn how to work with people and learn how to guide and lead people effectively.
And I've definitely learned just working well with others. I mean, we have so many different personalities in the Harby room, and we all come together because of our shared interest in journalism and our shared interest in presenting information to the students in a truthful and consistent way. And I think despite being so different, we are all connected in that one way.